Hey everyone, this is Ethan, and I am here to talk about the San Diego Superchargers. Best primetime song ever, no doubt about it. I miss you, Chris Berman and Tom Jackson. Anyway, thank you for all the stuff with the Patriots video. It's gone over pretty well. The write-up's gone over pretty well, and that was definitely one of the tougher teams to do, even though I know them, just because I knew that if I got something wrong, I would get yelled at. And luckily, thus far, I don't think I've gotten anything wrong, so I think we're okay. But now we can go on to San Diego. Rabid fan base of their own, and one of the best in the game runs this team, AJ Smith. He is so good at what he does. And honestly, it just never ceases to amaze me how they're able to manipulate the draft to their advantage, sort of Belichickian, but not all the way, and how they're willing to go for guys they want. They will trade up if there is a player that they want, especially. And one guy who I've heard bandied about for them as a guy who they might want to trade up for is Julio Jones out of Alabama. And I see it as a slight possibility, but I think that there are some other players that they might want instead, even enough to trade up for. And I could see it happening, but I'm not sold on the idea. I also think that there is a good chance Jones goes higher than AJ Green. I don't think it's quite as high as it was before, but I think that there is a good chance that it happens just because of the quarterback situation. I don't see Cincinnati taking a receiver at this point. Unless Buffalo for some reason decides that they want to take Gabbert, I don't see Cincinnati passing him up and therefore making a receiver open. So that'll cause the talent to fall a little bit. So the opportunity may be there for them to trade up. I'm just not sure they will. I've also heard Tyron Smith a little bit. I'm not sure. I think that considering the way that their line is constructed, where they have a very good player in Marcus McNeil who is holding down the fort at left tackle, they need a right tackle more than a left tackle. And they could push McNeil over to right tackle, but I'm not such a big fan of that. I think that they could wait until later in the draft and find a slightly more value-oriented right tackle prospect, somebody who you won't need to take with your first round pick. Because in my mind, when you have a first round pick, first of all, I think offensive tackle is one of the more overrated positions on a football field. And if you look at the starters, the Chargers have never taken an offensive tackle whose value was not great at the position where they took him. Clary was a steal when they drafted him because he was a late round pick. Marcus McNeil was a steal in the second round when they took him. I don't expect them to be willing to trade up for an offensive tackle. I think they'll wait for someone to fall to them. So that leads us to defensive end. And this is where I think they can make some hay. New defensive coordinators coming in for San Diego, Greg Minuski. And probably murder that name is probably Minuski, but for the purpose of this video, I will call him Minuski. And he comes from San Francisco. And I think that looking at the way San Francisco played, the Chargers could use a defensive end sort of like what San Francisco had with Justin Smith, a penetrating 3-4 guy who can play various positions, get in the backfield, and hold his own against the run at the point of attack. So there are a couple of guys I could see them looking at this position. The obvious ones who are going to be mentioned are Muhammad Wilkerson of Temple, although I don't think that the chances are as high they're going to take him as they will take somebody else. First of all, I don't think that they're going to go east in the first round. They don't love taking East Coast players. They definitely skew a little bit more to the west. Slightly Big Ten. I mean, they took Luis Castillo, and he was from Northwestern. But definitely pushing Western. I don't see them going east a ton. They could, but playing probabilities when you're trying to make predictions, Western is the way to go. So J.J. Watt is definitely a possibility for them. However, there is somebody else who's a slightly better fit. His name is Cam Jordan. And some people think Cam Jordan's going to go a lot higher than this in this draft, and I think it's definitely possible. I could see him going 16 to the Jaguars in a millisecond. I could see him actually going 7 to San Francisco. That would not shock me. He is a perfect fit for that style of defense. And he would really come right in and play if he was in San Francisco. San Diego, he can make a huge impact as well. And I would not be shocked if they traded up to get him. I think it could happen. I think that with the way that they're constructed, Jacques Césaire is a decent defensive end, but he's a stopgap. He is a Gerard Warren when this team could use a Richard Seymour. Or even a better analogy, because Jordan plays nothing like Seymour, they could use a Justin Smith. He is versatile, he does whatever you need him to do, and Cameron Jordan reminds me a lot of Justin Smith. He also reminds me of a slightly bigger Andre Carter in some ways, and actually, when I talked about Washington, I said they could also take Cam Jordan because of that versatility. But his athleticism is really great. He's a high character guy. Not that Smith is married to high character guys, take them as picks, but it's definitely not a bad thing when you have a guy who can come in and you're not terrified of sort of the implications off the field. I mean, we saw that with Vincent Jackson. Great athlete, sensational player, but the off the field antics cost him a lot of this past season. And that could be on the minds of these owners, especially in the wake of a lockout. Because if you have a guy who gets into trouble, then you're losing 1.5 years almost with him if we don't play this year. And even if we do play this year, he could get in trouble in the offseason, and then more crazy stuff can happen. Cam Jordan is a pretty clean guy, and I think that he will be able to make it through whatever travails are ahead of him involving the player situation. And I think that he, if he falls here or if they trade up, will be the favorite for their pick. I could see them going a number of different ways. I can't really think of a particular sleeper for their pick. If I really had to pick one, I might be inclined to say Jonathan Baldwin. Although he is Eastern, he fits a lot of what they do. But I think that at this point, Cam Jordan would be a very good pick for them, and I could see them trading up to get him as well. Looking later in the draft, as I said, Baldwin could be a wide receiver prospect. I personally do not like Baldwin. But I think that a lot of that is that he's very similar to Vincent Jackson coming out of school. And I would love for a Charger fan to answer me this, because unfortunately, while I do know a lot about the draft, I did not see Vincent Jackson's college tape. And I would love to know if Vincent Jackson was as bad as Jonathan Baldwin in college getting off of jams. I have never seen a bigger wide receiver suffer more at the line of scrimmage than I see with Jonathan Baldwin. And I think that's something that probably, if Jackson was able to get past to the NFL, I could see Baldwin doing it as well, because Baldwin is extremely athletic. Regardless, I could see him being a pick, but I'm not sure. But seriously, San Diego fans, please answer that for me, because I really don't know, and I haven't seen any of Vincent Jackson's old tape, so I'd love to know. Other wide receiver guys you could look at, Greg Little of North Carolina. Again, a bit of a character question just because of the entire situation there, but he's still a really talented guy and fits their mold of wide receiver. Austin Pettis of Boise State not only fits a mold, but he shares school with Legadou Nene. And he is a nuanced player who is underrated in my eyes. Even I underrated him, and now I don't. Now I probably overrate him, but it's not a big deal. The other sleeper who I love for them is Jarman Fortson out of Florida State. And he's not on a ton of draft boards, probably because of the risk. But 6th and 7th round, why not just take a chance? I mean, the worst that happens, he gets cut. And 6th and 7th round picks get cut anyway. And with the track record they've had with wide receivers, why not try to make something special out of him? He's 6'3", over 220 pounds, I believe, and he runs like a 4.5 40. So he seems like a really nice late round flyer. Other guys I could take, I could see them going offensive line, getting some depth there. See them going for that back 7 help. Definitely always good to have depth there. But really, the one place where they lost a lot last year was on special teams. So they have to take a gunner this year. And I think that 5th round or so, they'll take a gunner. They'll take a guy whose job is literally like Cassius Vaughn on Denver or Kyle Arrington before he was forced to start in New England. And he will run down and he will help set the edge against kick returns and punt returns, because that's what they need. They need a gunner really, really badly. So overall, that's good stuff for the Chargers. Tomorrow's the Giants, which should also be a lot of fun. tweet this, share this, and tweet me, sandwich. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. Oh, go Yukon Huskies. They won tonight, and could not be happier. So, see ya.